What would actually happen inside the body if someone stopped drinking alcohol for just 7 days? Not a month, not a year, just 1 week. Because something interesting starts happening much sooner than most people expect. Sleep begins to shift, energy starts to change, and deep inside, systems that were quietly working overtime begin to reset. But the timeline isn't what most people think, because the first 24 hours feel very different from day 7. Alcohol doesn't just affect the body while it's being consumed, it continues working long after the last drink. Every time alcohol enters the system, the body treats it as a toxin, something that needs to be broken down and removed as quickly as possible. And the liver takes on almost that entire responsibility. The liver uses specific enzymes to break alcohol down in stages, first into a more toxic compound, and then into something the body can safely eliminate. That process takes time, and it demands a lot of energy. While that's happening, other essential processes slow down. Fat metabolism decreases. Blood sugar regulation becomes less stable. Sleep cycles get disrupted in ways most people never notice because the effects are gradual and they build quietly over time. So when alcohol is removed, the body doesn't simply snap back to normal. It begins a sequence of biological changes, and those changes follow a specific timeline. So what exactly happens inside the body, hour by hour, day by day, when alcohol is completely removed? Within the first 24 hours, alcohol clears from the bloodstream, but the effects don't vanish with it. For many people, sleep actually feels worse on the first night. That might seem backwards, but there's a clear biological reason for it. Alcohol suppresses parts of the central nervous system. It slows activity, reduces stimulation, and makes falling asleep feel easier. But once it's removed, the brain begins working to rebalance that suppression. The nervous system starts to recalibrate, and during that process, sleep can become lighter, more fragmented, and less restful. This recalibration is sometimes called CNS rebound. The brain, having adapted to a chemical that slows it down, temporarily overshoots in the other direction. Activity increases, alertness rises at the wrong time, and the result is a night that feels less restful than expected, even though no alcohol was consumed. At the same time, hydration begins to stabilize. Alcohol is a diuretic. It signals the kidneys to release more water than the body needs to lose, which leads to dehydration even when fluids are being consumed. Once alcohol is gone, that signal stops. Fluid balance slowly begins to regulate. Electrolyte levels, which also shift during alcohol consumption, begin moving back toward normal as well. The shift is subtle, but it has already started, and this is where the shift becomes noticeable. Alcohol interferes with the liver's ability to maintain stable blood sugar levels. It disrupts the normal release of glucose into the bloodstream, which can cause energy spikes followed by sharp crashes. Without alcohol in the system, the liver begins catching up. Blood sugar levels start to even out. Instead of unpredictable energy swings, the body begins producing more consistent fuel throughout the day. Some people notice fewer afternoon slumps, less difficulty concentrating, and a reduction in that familiar foggy feeling that can linger through the morning. The liver, no longer locked into alcohol processing, begins returning to its other responsibilities, breaking down fats, clearing metabolic waste, and supporting overall hormonal balance. Inflammation also begins to decrease during this window. Alcohol is a known inflammatory agent. It activates immune pathways in the gut and liver that contribute to low-grade systemic inflammation. When alcohol is removed, those pathways begin to quiet down. It's a change that happens below the surface, but its effects eventually become visible in digestion, in skin, and in how the body manages physical stress. But here's where the timeline gets genuinely interesting. Sleep begins to change again, and this time, in the other direction. What actually happens to sleep quality when alcohol is removed for several days straight? Alcohol disrupts REM sleep. REM, or rapid eye movement sleep, is the deeper stage of the sleep cycle, most closely linked to memory consolidation, emotional regulation, and physical recovery. Alcohol may make falling asleep feel easier, but it compresses and fragments REM sleep throughout the night. By days 3 to 5 without alcohol, REM sleep begins to recover. Sleep architecture starts to reorganize. The body spends more time in the restorative stages it had been missing. Waking up starts to feel different, not just less groggy, but genuinely more restored. Research on sleep and alcohol has consistently shown that even small amounts of alcohol before sleep reduce REM duration. The brain prioritizes metabolizing the alcohol during the early sleep stages, which delays and shortens the REM cycles that should be occurring. Once alcohol is removed from the equation, the brain is free to move through its natural sleep stages without interruption. This shift doesn't stay in the bedroom. Mood begins to stabilize alongside sleep quality. The stress response becomes less reactive. Emotional regulation improves. Small frustrations that once felt draining start to land differently. The connection between sleep and mood is well established in neuroscience, and removing alcohol is one of the more direct ways that connection becomes visible. By day 7, something important starts to become clear. The changes aren't just adding up, they're compounding. By the end of the week, several systems have had uninterrupted time to stabilize. Hydration is more balanced. Sleep is deeper and more restorative. Blood sugar regulation is more consistent. And the liver, which had been diverting significant resources toward alcohol metabolism, has had days to redirect that energy toward fat processing, detoxification, and nutrient management. Some people also begin noticing physical changes. Reduced bloating is common because alcohol irritates the digestive lining and contributes to inflammation in the gut. When that irritant is removed, the digestive system begins to settle. Skin clarity can improve as well, partly due to better hydration and reduced systemic inflammation. Energy levels often feel more stable and sustained by this point too. Without the cyclical drain of alcohol metabolism pulling resources away from other systems, the body begins operating with a slightly fuller reserve. Tasks that once felt effortful in the afternoon become more manageable. Mental clarity sharpens in ways that are noticeable but hard to fully quantify. None of these changes require adding anything new to the routine. No supplements, no dietary overhaul, just removing one substance the body had been working constantly to manage. And once that load lifts, the biological systems responsible for balance begin doing exactly what they're designed to do. 7 days is a short window, but what it reveals is significant. The speed at which the body begins to respond tells something important about how much energy alcohol consumption actually requires. Not just in the moment, but continuously, in the background. The liver is one of the most metabolically active organs in the body. It runs hundreds of processes simultaneously. When a significant portion of that capacity is routinely redirected toward alcohol metabolism, other functions operate below their potential. Fat oxidation slows. Hormonal regulation becomes less precise. Inflammatory markers can rise. Research has shown that even moderate regular alcohol consumption affects sleep quality, liver enzyme levels, and metabolic function in measurable ways. What happens during 7 days of abstinence is essentially the body beginning to reclaim that capacity. And the timeline of these changes is faster than most people assume, because the body is not passive. It is continuously adapting, responding, and trying to maintain equilibrium. 7 days isn't long enough to reverse long-term effects, but it is long enough to demonstrate something that matters. The body responds quickly when a constant stressor is removed. The changes don't begin at day 7. They begin within the first 24 hours quietly, gradually, building day by day. Sleep shifts, energy stabilizes, the liver begins catching up, and by the end of the week, the effects are stacking in ways that are measurable and noticeable. What makes this timeline significant isn't just what changes, it's how fast it begins. And 7 days is only the beginning. The same systems that start shifting in 1 week don't stop there. They continue adapting, improving, and rebuilding when alcohol is removed for longer, becoming more efficient over time. And the effects go far beyond sleep and energy, reaching deeper into how the body functions each day. If you want to see what happens when those changes go even further, watch the next video on what happens when you stop drinking.